So,
Hi, everyone.
hello.
Hi, Miro. A very warm welcome to you and our Yippee community. Nice to see you again. We will
Very happy
continue.
to join you. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. We're gonna continue our series again. We are in positive health. We have started a journey together with 7 episodes of where you are so kind and will explain to our Yippee community what is the concept of the 7 S's of positive health, which is also part of your book. And last time I had the pleasure to talk with you about the first S. We've decided to start with sun and nature. So thanks again for this. You will find the link added to our today's episode again, so that you can always get back to what we've started, so that you get the whole picture. And today it's all about sports. Sports as the second S in the 7S concept of positive health, Miro.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what is it all about sports? Why is it positive for us?
I think, we, in the history of mankind, of humankind, we were always active. You would never be sitting around the whole day, especially indoors. We were talking about the indoors thing last time, where people nowadays, our life is overwhelmed by technology. We sit at our computers at home, or even if we have free time, we tend to look at our mobile phones, smartphones, and do most of the things online, and we miss the whole life that is going on outside, which is, first of all, from the natural point of view, very problematic. We don't get enough sun, fresh air, clean water. We don't experience nature. We discussed it last time. But another thing that happens mostly in a very natural way when we are outside is that we just move our bodies, So this is, I call it sport, because in modern world we have so little natural opportunities to move our bodies, which was never the case in history, because we were working physically most of the time. Like 99% of people were going outside and doing something, so nobody had to do sports. Sports as such is a kind of a new invention of the modern era, that we have to do something which we call sport in order to move our bodies, because otherwise we would sit at home and on the couch and watch television, or play video games, or do things with such social media and so on. So we had to invent it, and we call it sports. And I would really recommend that we mostly think about sports being done outside, if only possible. But of course, it's much better to do any sports and move our bodies in any way, including the indoor possibilities. But the combination of being outside in nature and doing sports, meaning again moving our body, is absolutely essential for our health, and not only for our physical health but also for our mental health. Already the Romans said, and I think most people know this famous saying, mens sana in corpore sano, or anima sana in corpore sano, which means that you can only be mentally fit and healthy if your body is healthy. So this is the first step. So let's start with moving our body. And in our modern Western societies, it usually would mean some kind of a sport. So it's like a specific kind of activity for most people. But I would basically start the whole discussion about sport with moving our body. And probably the most natural first step is just walking, like walking, like instead of standing or sitting. Sitting is really bad for us. There is a study that showing that every additional hour of sitting a day will shorten your life by 10%. It's really amazing.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't think it might be that strong. I just read it last week.
Mm-hmm.
But then the sitting lifestyle is a killer for sure. So let's stand up, walk, go outside, and this is the minimum, the very first step, the foundation of the sports in 7S.
Mm-hmm. I'm grateful that you mentioned how to start, because I can imagine many people watching this ask themselves, okay, actually, I don't do any sports. How can I start? And what is the right sports for me? So you're saying everyone can stand up, everyone who is in the position
So it
can
is
move
easy.
physically.
Sports,
That's
some people think, yeah, sports is complicated. Sports is not for me because
okay.
maybe I'm too big. I have a big body, and it's difficult for me, and I feel pain in my knees or whatever. There is a lot of excuses and a lot of things that people mention as a like obstacle
As a
to move
barrier,
your
yeah.
body. But
Mm.
in 99% of cases, you can walk. Yeah, there are of
Okay.
course conditions where you cannot. Then this is a separate topic. There is still possibilities of movement, sometimes with the help of some physiotherapies or other ways. But we are concentrating on the, let's say, basically healthy, or like people who are able to move. Yeah, so they just don't move because they don't choose to. So it's a question of taking the responsibility for our health and well-being and going out and walking. So this is something that everybody can do, regardless even of the weather. It's only the question of the right clothes, and we can do it. And of course there is a certain level of discipline needed for that. So without the proper planning and commitment and decision making that we do what we decided to do, it might not work. And we know that a lot of people make some promises, like in the beginning of the year. Now is middle December, the time of these promises being made is coming. And as we know, a lot of people promise to themselves, so like mostly in good faith. So why should you do something to lie to yourself? But still, we know the statistics that much less than 50%, in depending on the studies, of these promises are fulfilled. So yeah, it shows it's not. I love this saying. It's simple but not easy. Yeah, it's simple where the concept is not complicated, but it's not easy because we need something to make it happen, really. Yeah, and there are many ways that you can deal with this issue. And I understand this was the intention of your question as well. I would say two basic things. One is choose the kind of activity that you like and can do. Yeah. So like if somebody, I don't know, lives in, let's say, landlocked country and will choose the sport of sailing in open ocean, yeah, it might be a little bit difficult and complicated to fulfill this kind of activity just because of the conditions, and that it takes like many days to go to the place where you can start this activity, like maybe an extreme example. But then we should choose something that is relatively simple, available, and something that we like. And because if you force yourself to do something that you hate or don't like even, it makes it much more difficult. It's still possible, but very, very few people, a very little percentage of people, small percentage of people will achieve it. So it's much wiser to think about what kind of activity is pleasant for me. And for some people, it might simply be walking. For less people, it will be running. And what I would generally recommend would be choosing a team sport, a team that involves more people than yourself. So doing something in teams, like you can do in two people, like playing ping pong, for instance, or you can do with like team sport, classical team sports like football, basketball, volleyball. But you know what I mean? That do something that there is a commitment that if you don't come, people will be disappointed. So the commitment is like double strong because it's not only a commitment to yourself, but also to other people. And there is a crucial thing of this interaction with other people where you have fun together. Like when you try hard because of you also want to feel good that you're a good player and that you're improving and that you contribute to the success of the team, and so on and so on. So I think team sports are great, but if somebody is not ready, maybe never played any team sports, it's no problem. You can start with the simple walking. And of course, there is also the option of a gym. Some people might have some equipment at home, or they go to the fitness studio or gym. That's great. what I personally recommend, as much as possible, do things outside because of the obvious reasons that we discussed, being in nature, in the sun, if only possible. But sometimes we have situations or days where it's not possible. So doing indoor is much better than doing nothing. That's for sure. And these couch potatoes that only watch TV, it is not the idea of sport that I mean, obviously. And even if it's watching sports, because many people think, yeah, I'm a big fan of sports. So what you do? Yeah, I watch all kind of, I don't know, Wimbledon in tennis and the Champions League. So yeah, this is also nice, but it's again not what we mean here with sport and moving your body.
And also, if it's inside, you mentioned also we are most of us are having a job where lots of sitting is involved, and we also must stay inside. Maybe cannot go for a walk, but minimum to stand up regularly,
Exactly,
right?
because options of having like a table with changing position that you can move it up and down, so and then work partly in a standing position is very good. But the crucial thing is actually changing position. Thanks for bringing this issue. So, like, what I mean, it's before a lot of specialists, even there were books written about what is the perfect sitting position with the perfect chair, you know, supporting your back in this point or that point. And now I spoke to many leading physiotherapists and people who really understand this issue. And for me, the conclusion is like, there is no ideal sitting position. Sitting per se is the wrong thing for human body. So of course you might have a better chair and a worse chair, but it's much more important to change the position, to stand up, to do a little walk, and do it like, even if you have a sitting job, because of, people would say, look, but I have this, I'm an accountant and my job is basically sitting at a computer, you know, like typing things. Yeah, of course, many of us have this kind of a job, but usually does not mean that you are not allowed to stand up or take a little walk or make these little breaks. And then, and when on the way, you could do even a little bit, like some people would do a few sit-ups or some stretching exercises or whatever. If you think about it, there are more possibilities that we think normally, and it's not forbidden and it's allowed. And if you do like every hour, this 5-minute break for a little movement where you walk a little bit, maybe to make a coffee or even to the toilet or whatever, but on the way you do some additional stretching exercise, this brings a lot, because the sitting in one position for many hours is the real killer.
Yeah, exactly. It's not good for the back. It's not good for the stomach. I learned once because it's not a natural position. Sitting for the stomach.
So standing is much better, actually. Standing and walking, because when you think about, you know, our predecessors, like still a few generations ago, like people, sitting is a very unnatural position, because in the ancient times we didn't have even chairs, you know, to sit in this kind of a position that we do now. So people might sit down for a moment to do something, but basically sitting was not the position that was like natural and obvious. Yeah, so we were either standing or walking or lying or half lying, but sitting like we sit on the chairs is pretty new concept, and because our bodies didn't have enough time to adapt, it has a lot of negative consequences.
Yeah,
as you mentioned, so including even for the stomach, not only for the back, which is the first.
Yeah. I imagine especially after having a meal, sitting is really it's compressing. We all can imagine. So you've been mentioning, Miro, very interesting. You are heavily in sports, if I can say so. And I know you're playing tennis. How did you find your way to tennis? How did you find your way? And then let's talk about what you love about it. Why is it your passion? How did you find your way?
Tennis, I believe that for me personally, probably I could say that tennis is the most beautiful sport that I know. Yeah, and I tried quite a few, because as you said, I'm quite into sports, so I tested really many, a lot of like the classical team sports like basketball, football, volleyball, others, ping pong, horse riding, sailing, swimming, many others. I don't want to make the list too long, but I really tried a lot. Including also like extreme sports like climbing. I climbed Matterhorn, Mont Blanc, many other 4,000 meters, like parachuting, paragliding, whatever. I mean, a lot. Tennis is exceptional in many ways, both from the physical aspects, that you have a very diversified types of movement. So it's like both sprint sometimes, but also moving to the front, to the back, to the sides, going up for like doing the smash, or going down to pick the ball that is going next. So like all kind of movements where all parts of your body are working. Maybe there are one limitation that some people would say, that you keep the racket typically in one hand. Well, there are some very few exceptions of people that change the hands to like having 2 forehands or something. But basically, you might see that your right arm will be even built a bit stronger with the muscle. So some people would recommend to do something on top with your left arm and hand to make it more balanced. But I don't see a lot of real complications, even if people don't do these balancing exercises. Like, I don't see a lot of negative consequences of this. But the positives are really overwhelming, and so many. So like we spoke shortly about the physical, very diversified type of movement. You have like these intensive phases of sprint, and most of the time you're kind of walking or short running. So like different kind of movements, which I described already, but also the mental aspect, that you have to think about the tactics, how you want to play, where you want to play. It's not only about the technique, which is another, like you need to develop the technique and you train for it a lot, like to make a perfect technique to hit the ball cleanly. And there is like tennis is considered to be one of the most complex, if not the most complex technically sport, because the ball comes with different speeds, different directions, different spins, and you have to adjust and hit it in the ideal way, ideally in the same position more or less as you are used to make the optimal movement. So you need this anticipation skills as well, to predict where the ball will be and adjust your body in a perfect way to hit cleanly. So it's a science in itself, and it takes many years to master it. And actually, you are never a real master. You're always learning. And then you have to focus 100% on the ball. And the great benefit, like for me personally, is that like if I go running, sometimes what happens is that I'm analyzing my problems during running. Running is so uncomplicated as an activity, usually, at least for me, that I have the capacity in my brain to think about other things. But if I play a tennis match, especially against a good opponent, but actually any tennis match, I would say, in order to play well, you have to be 100% concentrated on the ball and on your tactics and what you do and what the opponent is doing. You really have, even if you try to concentrate, you still make mistakes. So it's the full focus is absolutely needed in order to play tennis. Then you automatically forget about the whole world outside, including all your problems, because it's impossible not to, you know. So it's a like a nice side effect of playing tennis, that you, for this hour or two, I usually go for 2 hours, I forget about the whole world, including all kind of problems.
So it's relaxing. It's relaxing for our mind.
At least like you avoid this, you put away the stress. You don't see the stress. You don't live through the stress, at least through these hours when you play. But usually, of course, there is the whole hormonal play where you have endorphins. Then in your body, people usually feel happier and relaxed during and after playing sports. There is also the hormonal game of serotonin, dopamine, especially if you win, oxytocin as well, like if you develop a nice relationship with the partner, because usually you play against a friend, not always. Be also somebody you don't like, but typically in tennis world, you play again most of the time against people you know and you like. So there is he's your opponent the moment you play, but in a way he's a friend. And even if he plays very inconvenient balls to you, the right approach is that you see it as a teaching you where is your weakness and how you should learn to improve in this area. So then in the end, even if they won, your opponent, you should congratulate always, at least I try to do it, and thank them, for giving you this valuable lesson. And then afterwards, you usually go and have a beer or have a cup of coffee or spend some time together. It's very typical for tennis. And actually, there was a study, I don't know if you saw it, comparing the influence on of different sports on how long people live. And then I didn't even expect it that the differences are so big, because I thought they are probably the sports. Yeah, if you do any sports regularly, it could be like a similar effect. But then they discovered that the range was between 1.5 years, as far as I remember, until 9.6 years. So actually, you could say 10 years. So between 1 and 10 years, so big discrepancy. Yes? So why? And then the scientists were not sure, actually, but there was some explanations and some, in the discussion of the study, some suggestions what could be the reasons for that. And tennis scored #1. So the second sport was, there was some other racket sports like badminton, paddle, and so on, around 6-7 years, and tennis alone was close to 10 years. And they said that probably the thing that there is this variety of movement, and also this social aspect that you play, that you develop relationships, you play with somebody that you like, that you trust, that you spend time, that you are part of a community. Because usually in tennis you have also not only single competitions, but you have tournaments, and during the tournament you eat together, you talk to the other people, the other players, not only the ones that you play to. You feel part of a community. So this is a very beautiful thing about tennis, where you have all these additional aspects. So you have this physical aspect, you have the technical aspect about the quality of your strokes, you have the tactical aspect about where you want to place your strokes and your ball in order to make it hard for the opponent, in order that you can win. And you obviously have this also condition, that you have to stand it for like 1 or 2 hours or whatever. During tournaments is even 4 or 5 hours. And then afterwards you have this nice encounter, you go for this coffee or eat something and talk and have this feeling of belonging. So I think it's really amazing how many aspects tennis actually covers. And I even had this inspection, if you allow me to put it in the context of PERMA. Actually, preparing for today's interview, I was thinking about it. And PERMA, maybe I will just mention shortly. I think most of our listeners or watchers will know this term developed by Martin Seligman, PERMA, the essence of positive psychology. And I had this reflection when I went through PERMA through the perspective of tennis, that the full PERMA is in it, and I can walk you through it if you allow, very shortly.
Yes, I'd ask you to.
Emotion. Look, if you are playing tennis, first, the source of the first positive emotion is that you can do something well. I mean, of course, you're not immediately on this level, but you enjoy the strokes, you enjoy the process, And of course, if you win, or if you hit, or even if you hit a nice stroke, or a winner, or something of good quality, you experience this positive emotion immediately. So it's definitely there. Then you have engagement, so this flow, Obviously in tennis, because of this focus that you forget the whole world when you're so engaged. This comes for me, the best, like if I had to describe what engagement and flow for me is, that tennis is the first example that comes to my mind. I'm fully into it. I forget the rest of the world. Then you have R, so which is relationships, and obviously we just discussed that you don't play tennis alone. You could go to hit the walls from time to time for a training, but like 99% of the time when you think about playing tennis is at least with or against one person. I personally play a lot of doubles, which I recommend a lot, which strengthens this relationship part even more. Then you have a meaning. So like meaning, you could say you have like a direct goal that you want maybe to win, or you want to improve yourself, but also you contribute to your health and well-being. So you do something that makes sense. So that matters. The new explanation, with even Seligman nicely during our last Congress, Martin Seligman said that maybe mattering sometimes is even a better expression that the big word meaning. So it matters, because you do something that makes sense, that contributes to your health, contributes to your well-being. This is something great. And finally, accomplishment, achievement. Obviously, if you win, especially if you win a tennis match, or if you even win a game or a set, or plays a wonderful ball, you have the feeling that you achieve something, that it makes sense for you, but it's also like achievement, you're proud of it. So every tennis player would agree that we experience this feeling many times playing tennis. So I just realized it's very fresh. It's really like half an hour old reflection. Just preparing for today, I discovered that the full PERMA is in tennis.
And I guess if we're a little creative in ourselves, it is true for all other sports as well.
Yeah, at least like for most sports, you find a lot of PERMA in it. In some other sports, the full PERMA will be also in it. But as I said, sport for me is like a big experience where it's not only about this physical movement, which is the beginning and the foundation, and we should start with it. But if we can combine it with these beautiful other aspects, it becomes like a important part of our life. I cannot imagine my life without playing tennis, honestly. I mean, like, it's almost like a positive addiction, you know? So I just wanted to say that once you discover the full beauty of a sport like tennis or whatever sport of your choice, you don't have a problem to continue. The problem is that if you don't do any sports, how to make it a habit. And this is a more general issue, and like with any habit, the initial phase is a little bit difficult. So again, kind of simple but not easy, and this not easy part is about discipline. And I would just recommend this classical advice that I think one of the first persons that mentioned it was Benjamin Franklin in his autobiography. I learned at least from him, and then I saw in many studies of modern psychology to have it reconfirmed that you need typically 1 month. This was what Benjamin Franklin said. That the studies that I remember, like, they recommend something between 3 weeks and 6 weeks, usually more or less a month of forcing yourself. Actually, let's put it bluntly, forcing yourself. So it's maybe not that much fun initially. Let's agree, but the long-term benefit is so huge that it's worth it. So I have to plan it. I have to make it possible. I have to force myself. Some people would say, like, if you want to walk or run, put your shoes for running and your clothes already in the middle of the corridor so that you have to like walk on it, and it will make you remember or make it impossible to forget, or put it in the calendar, put like the alarm in your mobile phone or whatever, or remind your family, tell them, please support me. So if I'm getting lazy and I think, well, I don't want to go, tell me to go, kick me out. So there is a lot of supporting methods, but basically you have to force yourself, maybe with help of your close ones and with these little tricks, and there are many others. There are books written about how to develop a habit, by basically the message would be, force yourself for 4 weeks, and then it will become part of your life, as long as you chose the right sport for you. But so first, make the right choice, know yourself, what is right. You can also start with something simple like walking, and then running, and then go into more sophisticated sports. But once you choose the right sport for you and go through this initial hard period of making the habit part of your life, you will be grateful to yourself actually for this decision and for this hardship of this 1 month till the end of your life. And it works. And I know it from my own experience. I know it from the experience of my clients, also from books and from studies. So I think it's like very clear that it works like this. And is it easy? Probably not, but only for 1 month. I think we knowing the benefit, we can invest 1 month of our life of you know, forcing ourselves for this half an hour a day, let's say. By the way, many people heard about, like, because the next question might be, how much sport do we need? And then there is a lot of studies lately, especially in medical circles, where the number 150 minutes is part of the story. So which would make like half an hour, 5 times a week, more or less. So yeah, okay, this was like studied. They had certain assumptions and so on. I wouldn't put too much weight on the 150. But let's say it should be regular. It should be, if possible, every day. Maybe, okay, 1 day exception is okay, but I would say like every day, at least half an hour, like as an orientation. And once we make it part of our life, we will be very much into going for a bit more. Like if you play tennis, you would typically play at least 1 hour. Yeah. If you go for running, it might be maybe half an hour up to an hour. Some people do more, but not so many, depending on what kind of sport you choose. And of course, it doesn't have to be only one sport. Initially, probably yes, but then you might do some variety of sports to your liking, and you will enjoy it even more.
There are a lot of recommendations and practical tips from your side, Miro. Thank you very much. So really start easy, but ensure a regular movement. It doesn't have to be, you hit the world in the sense of, it does not, no excuses. So no excuses for physical condition, except you're really limited in some sense, but there are also other ways to stimulate body, to stimulate mind, to do your own kind of sports. So really the tiny habits are what I love, and what is easy to start with. We heard reality, so be real, account maybe 1 month a hard time, but it doesn't have to be a hard time. If I'm prepared in my mind to have a hard time, maybe it doesn't come. So
it might, if for people who would say it is hard, it's difficult, I never did it. So I think I don't like to avoid the aspect of maybe it's like this self-discipline, this forcing yourself. It might appear hard, but actually, as you said, if you do it properly with the right mindset, that you do it for yourself, for your health, and actually you choose something that you basically enjoy or did enjoy somehow, at least a little bit in the past. So it should be some fun in itself, and it's kind of self-rewarding. So because typically, I mean, most people will admit that after doing sports, they feel happy, they feel good. So it's not like hard in terms of like, okay, it was unpleasant. The hard is only about this planning and making the first step, going out, putting the shoes on and starting it. And then
it's gone.
To become actually pleasant.
And
so
then it's flow.
Absolutely.
So thank you. Perma, we feed our perma with sports. And with these words, I want to finish. I say thank you. Thank you for the second episode in our Positive Health series. I can make a preview, a little sneak preview. So next episode is about the third S of positive health that Miro developed, and we will talk about sex. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Gabby.
Thanks.